Hello there. This is MD. Here with you on SaskiYano. Here we go again. We are in a new After Effects tutorial. In this tutorial, you will learn the basics of compositions. In After Effects, composition is the framework for a movie or a video. Each composition has its own timeline. A typical composition includes multiple layers that represent components, such as video and audio footage, animated text, and vector graphics, still images. You can arrange your layers within a composition, and space, and time and composite, using transparency features to determine which parts of underlying layers show through the layers stacked on top of them. So for example, this right here is a composition. This is called Starter Comp. And this is my composition panel. It's what's happening in my timeline down here. And I can make all kinds of changes to this. I can add footage to this. I can reposition things around. I can even animate things. Right. All of these fun and interesting things are done inside your composition. Let me just reset all of that. Now to create a composition in After Effects. It's quite easy. There's a button right here. Create a new composition. That'll bring up a dialog box where you can name your composition. You can set your resolution. And there's a bunch of different presets here. So if I wanted to do, let's say, 24 frames a second or HDTV 1080-24, it'll set up 1920 by 1080 at a frame rate of 24. Which is frames per second. Pixel aspect ratio of square pixels, which is most of the time what you're gonna be using. And you can set the duration of the comp. So let's say you need to make something that was 10 seconds long. No problem. Well, just type in 10 seconds. Right there. We can even name this SaskiYano 10-second comp. I can select the background color. And this is more or less the working background color of your composition. So, I'll just leave it to white. So can see what I'm talking about. And then you can click OK. There are some advanced settings here. But I'm not gonna go into those right now. Because those are things he can learn later on down the line. Alright. So it just created a composition for me. Now that composition is located in the wrong folder. For me. And that's going to annoy me. So I'm just gonna move it out of that folder. And move it back up here. To my main comps folder. Alright. So here's my composition. And right now, I don't have anything in it. It's a composition with nothing in it. But I could click the text tool. And I can add some text. And look like invisible text. Because the added white text to a composition with a white background. But I can change the color to black. I can add graphics to this, so here I have Illustrator files. So I can add some of these here and position things around. You can put all manner of things inside this composition. Now one thing to take note of. What you saw when I created this composition. This has a background of white. However, that is just the working background of this composition. If I were to render this out, this would not be white. This would be black. And I'm sure you're thinking, well, that's confusing. And it is. It is confusing for new users. But we have to understand this. If there is nothing in the background, After Effects really sees that as nothing. As transparency. So to be rendered black essentially. If you're rendering a video format that doesn't have transparency. If you're rendering in a video format that does have transparency, that'll be rendered as transparent. But probably the start you're not gonna be doing that. So this will be rendered as black. Even though you have the background color set to white. If you wanted a white background and you wanted to actually render white, you would have to create a solid, which you can do by right-clicking down here. Then go to New, Solid, or you can come up here to Layer, New, Solid, and create for yourself just a white solid with the same dimensions as your composition. So I'll make comp size button right here, which will help you with that. And you can select white from the color picker and click OK. And you can put this in the background. Now that looks exactly the same, but when these renders it will now have a white background. Because if I click this button here, again, which is the total transparency grid, you can see that now there are no transparent pixels because it has a white background. That can be a little bit confusing when you're first starting out, but that's the way it works. Now, at any point in time, you can go back and change any of those composition settings. Maybe you started working on this and you think, well, actually I need this to be a different dimension. Or maybe I need a different frame rate. No problem. You come up here to Composition. You can go to Composition Settings, which is Ctrl or Command K on the keyboard. Just hit Ctrl K. And you can change that. So let's say I want to make this a 23.976. Here you go. I just changed. And now, my composition. If I select a here in the project panel, you can see that it's reading 1920 by 1080.10 seconds long and is 23.976 frames a second. In your comp panel, you have a lot of options. Like you saw before, you can navigate around with the mouse wheel and by clicking the mouse wheel here to zoom in and out and to pan and position your composition so that you can see exactly what you want to. There's also some controls down here. For the magnification level, you can set it to fit up to 100%, which will choose whatever needs to make it fill this area here. You can toggle on a number of different grids here to help you position some things. Things like the title action safe, the proportional grid, the other grid here, which is much more detailed, and turn on guides, of which there are none. And you can turn on rulers. Now I almost always like to work with rulers on. I am gonna turn the grid off. And with rulers on, it's very handy. Because at any point in time, I can just click and drag out from that ruler. And that'll create a guide. And with that guide, and select my layers. And if snapping is turned on, which if you jump up here to the menu, snap to guide, underneath view, then you can use your guides to help you position and align things. In your comp, let's say you wanted to position this in the center. Okay. Well, I can turn on the title action safe because that has a vertical center mark here. Actually, it's here a horizontal center mark here. So I get that right in the center here. And maybe I want all of these items here to be positioned kind of in the same horizontal line here. So I'm just gonna move my guide. And I'll just snap them right there. Right. Really handy stuff to do. And it's all kind of click and drag. What you see is what you get. So rulers, grids, and guides are super useful for arranging your layers and helping you lay things out in your compositions. Coming up in the next tutorial, you are going to learn about pre-comps, so check that out. Finally, we are done for today. Don't forget to subscribe, like, share, and leave your comment down below in the comments section. Also, if you want to learn more, take a look at our first channel, Everything PS. See you next time. Bye.